To do business with their primary Nazi patron who was
here in defiance of tyranny. You've come to fight as free men. And free men you are. What will you do without freedom? Will you fight? Fight against that? No! We will run! And we will live. Aye. Fight and you may die. Run and you'll live. At least a while. And dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
You ready? Let's go. Yeah. For those of you that want to know what we're all about, it's like this, yo.
And welcome to Anti-Tyranny News Radio here on UCY.TV. Thank you for joining me this evening. State of the Union. A sideshow. It definitely was. Watching the president walk in, watching the people sit there and just, it's almost like they idolized him. They almost worship.
You're listening to the Hour of the Time. I'm William Cooper. Good evening, folks.
Whoa. Looks like we might have had a little issue there. Not sure what that was. Watching the whole thing, it got to the point I was like, these people look up to him because he's grabbing power. These people admire him because he's grabbing power. And it's just contrary to what we believed for such a long time. And someone brought up about ignoring Congress, and that's what they idolize. They're like, yes, yeah, that's awesome. Become a dictator. Or at least give more dictatorial power to the seat of the president. For the next president. Each president that comes along, we can push more dictatorial until we have complete control. Those checks and balances no longer exist. And there's something wrong with society that's allowing that to happen. What is wrong with society right now? There's something, an illness that's really just taken over. I got a few things I'm probably going to start off playing. Since someone brought it up in the chat room, I got a clip here. I got a few clips from Pigmine. I'll try to skip some of the nonsense, but talking about vows to act with or without Congress. So let's just go ahead and play this.
Broad picture of possibilities and the promises for action for middle-class America, which he painted last night. It comes as he tries to recover and move on from a lousy year and low approval ratings.
the President of the United States. Thank you.
After a year of government gridlock, President Obama called for action, urging Congress to set politics aside and believe in the American dream.
That's how the daughter of a factory worker is CEO of America's largest automaker. How the son of the barkeep is Speaker of the House.
He told the members he's eager to work with them, but warned that he will also act on his own.
America does not stand still, and neither will I. So wherever and whenever I can take steps without legislation to expand opportunity for more American families, that's what I'm going to do.
Among the promised executive actions, a raise in the minimum wage for federal contractors to $10.10 an hour.
If you cook our troops' meals or wash their dishes, you should not have to live in poverty.
Defending his embattled health care law, the president asked Republicans to stop fighting old battles and come up with their own solutions.
If you have specific plans to cut costs, cover more people, increase choice, tell America what you do differently.
On national security, President Obama promised continued vigilance against terrorism, but pointed proudly to the end of U.S. commitments in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Together with our allies, we will complete our mission there by the end of this year, and America's longest war will finally be over.
Finally, the president introduced Army Ranger Corey Remsburg, who's undergone years of surgery and rehab after being seriously wounded during his 10th deployment to Afghanistan.
Corey is here tonight. And like the Army he loves, like the America he serves, Sergeant First Class Corey Remsburg never gives up, and he does not quit.
At more than 2 minutes, it was the longest ovation of the night. And the most emotional point of the speech. Today in Maryland, the president goes to a big box store to urge Congress to raise the minimum wage for everyone. Then later in Pennsylvania,
I'm going to stop it there. Basically, he's planning on using executive orders. Matter of fact, the White House put out a press release from the Office of the Press Secretary, and it's titled "The State of the Union Fact Sheet Opportunity for All." This is ridiculous. They come out and say, well, we're planning on doing this, and we're not going to act with Congress. We're just going to just go ahead and start doing this stuff. It says here, the State of the Union fact sheet opportunity for all can be found here and below. I'll give a link to the people in the chat here in a minute. Opportunity for all, key executive actions the president will take in 2014. The president's top priority remains ensuring middle-class Americans feel secure in their jobs, homes, and budgets to build real lasting economic security. The president will work with Congress and act on his own to expand opportunity for all so that every American can get ahead and have a shot at creating a better life for their kids. Middle class security and opportunity at work. First one, raising the minimum wage through executive order to $10.10 for federal contract workers. Second one, creating MyRA, a new starter savings account to help millions save for retirement. 3, building a 21st century workplace for America's working families. The president, I'm going to read this one. The president will host a summit on working families, to highlight the policies that will ensure America's global economic competitiveness by supporting working families, showcase companies doing exemplary work in this space, and highlight model laws and policies from cities and states across the country. Next category, jobs and economic opportunity. Hold on, wait, what about the working that should have been in there. Launching 4 new manufacturing institutes in 2014. Government-wide review of federal training programs to help Americans get skills and demand for good jobs. 3, partnering with many America's leading CEOs to help the long-term unemployed. Expanding apprenticeships by mobilizing business, community colleges, and labor. Increasing fuel efficiency for trucks. Partnering with I'm not going to number them off anymore. Partnering with states, cities, and tribes to move to energy efficiency and cleaner power. Next category, schools and education opportunity. Connecting 20 million students in 15,000 schools to the best technology to enrich K through 12 education. And I'm sure that's definitely anything they do is going to include Common Core. They're going to try to push that. Whether they start renaming it something else or just, dance around the name of Common Core. Here it says redesigning high schools to teach the real world skills that kids need. And, increasing college opportunity for opportunity and graduation. Next one, middle class security and opportunity at work, making progress through executive action, raising the minimum wage. We already went through that. Let's see here. Oh, okay. Here we go. Then he lists continuing to work with Congress for extended emergency unemployment, raising minimum wage to $10.10, and that's not the federal minimum wage. That's I think they're trying to push that for all. Basically, we'll try to work with Congress on a couple things. This is just crazy. He's planning on pushing a lot of crap. I'll drop the link. Everybody can check it out. This is just crazy. And for them to just put it out there like that, it's just crazy. And I dropped it in the chat room there, so you guys can check that little fact sheet out. This is him putting out press statements that says, hey, this is what we're going to do. Whatever they do, you have to understand that they're stifling growth. When they say that they want to help the middle class, they want to build the middle class, you have to understand what our numbers have done. Yes, the middle class has shrunk. But what they don't talk about is the percentage of that middle class that became poor and the percentage of that middle class that moved up into the racket of being wealthier. And when you actually take the percentage, more people became wealthier out of the middle class than became poor. Doesn't mean that we didn't hurt. I was laid off. I was hurt by the situation, but, I wasn't going to go out and get food stamps and all. I went out and found another job, and it was hard, and I went without a job for a while and had to, help people out for cash. So it's one of those things that, you start doing the self-employed thing, and it's kind of hard in an economy that just crashed. And so, but it kept me afloat. And, some people will immediately seek help. Other people will, hey, I'm going to, I'm going to work through this. I'm going to do what it takes and work through it. And, some people might not have the ability, might not have a skill set that allows them to look at different opportunities, but that doesn't mean you can't, show your worth in a company. And I think even if you don't completely understand the job, if you show that you're willing to work, you still have the opportunity to move up, be like, this guy, he has the understanding of how the company works, and he doesn't take the willingness to put the work in to move up in the company. Well, we got this other guy that will constantly bust his butt, but he hasn't been here long enough to understand the, type of work to the point that we need him to, but he's willing to work, so we'll put him ahead because we know that he'll work at it. He'll work to better himself. While the guy that has the ability to do it has the lack of will to do it. And, we do have a problem here in America where we have people that some of them have grown up just dependent on the system. That's all they've ever known. What you try to do is wake them up to the point where you can say, hey, you want more? You work for more. And a lot of that has to do with being able to be creative and be able to build on your passions. And I've tried to tell people this before. If you have a passion for something, go for it. Go down that, path. Find that passion that you have. And it's not going to be easy. You'll probably fail. You better fail because, otherwise you're probably cheating. You might be, doing some dirty business. So, but you're going to trip and fall, and it's not going to be easy. And we have to fight government regulations that prevent you from being able to start that business and grow that business because they want to try to stifle your ability to grow by permitting, regulations, taxes. People go, oh, raise taxes on the rich. Well, when you say that and government says, oh, that's what we're going to do, the way they do it will stifle growth of small companies. Because small companies, well, this company and this owner, he makes $200,000 a year. Yes, but he's also taking a lot of that money and reinvesting it. He's created a business. He owns a little hardware store. There's a lot of small towns around here. They still have that, little tiny, hardware store that's been there for, 50 years. And these people are feeling it. The regulations and everything that, is bearing down on them, they feel that weight. And they still fight through it, and they're still able to survive. And that's where the problem comes in. Oh, well, regulations, we need those regulations because these big corporate, companies that are just global corporations, they're contaminating and, yeah, but how they set up the laws? Well, you pay $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 for, contaminating the stream. Well, they can pay that. Well, the small company, maybe a little small car wash. Well, you're putting, all these, chemicals into the water supply, so you're going to have to pay, $25,000, $50,000. What? Small company can't, afford to do that. A lot of times, you ask for, how's the proper way to do this? Well, they tell you what they want you to know. Oh yeah, you can directly dump into the sewer. Oh yeah. We have water filtration system, so you can dump that into the sewer. Well, we think these chemicals that you're dumping in the sewer, might be, so high in chemicals that we should, have to charge you more for your sewer hookup. Well, was there a better way I could clean the water and filter it and then dump it in the sewer? Is there ways that I could have made it cheaper on myself and better for the environment? Probably. But they don't want you to know that. They say dump right in the sewer. Then they charge you more. It's crazy. I've seen examples in certain states that, in certain cities too, not just a state, but a lot of times it's, cities, where the regulations for business are crazy. By the time you're done, I don't even see, how any small business can survive. And then you see these big businesses just running amok. And I think that's where we try to fight, is where the corruption is. And a lot of it's monopolies helping pass laws that stifle anybody in competition that might show up on the scene. So I think that's the biggest problem with small business right now. Okay, I don't know if you've seen it yet, but New York Representative, Michael Grimm. Yeah, well, he threatened to throw a reporter off a balcony. I have it here. Let's go ahead and cue this up here.
Finally, before we let you go, since we have you here, we haven't had a chance to kind of talk about some of the...
I'm not speaking about anything that's off topic. This is only about the president.
Well, what about...
Thank you.
All right, so Congressman Michael Grimm does not want to talk about some of the allegations concerning his campaign finances. We wanted to get him on camera on that, but he, as you saw, refused to talk about that. Back to you.
Why? Let me be clear to you. You have to do that to me again. I'll tell you.
I just wanted to ask you. Why? It's a valid question.
I'm telling you. No. You're not man. You're not man.
First he said, I will throw you off this effing balcony. And then right here where I stopped it, he said, no, you're not man enough. You're not man enough. I'll break you in half like a boy. This is our representatives. This is what we have in Congress. No, that wasn't a Democrat, that was a Republican. And, I've seen a lot of people that are just completely pushing the Republican Party away from them when it comes to association, that even Tea Partyists, they're like, we might want to go ahead and either completely kick these people out of the Republican Party, or a lot of them are like, we're looking third party, maybe. I don't think third party would be a viable answer for the Tea Party. It's definitely true people, the true libertarian ideologist type people that are like, we want to take back government and make it leave people alone. And a lot of the Tea Party has been kind of infiltrated by mainstream ideology Republicans. When I say mainstream, not the rhetoric that the mainstream usually spouts. I'm talking about they side with the establishment, the elitist Republicans, the progressives. And then you have people like this Michael Grimm in there. He's verbally and threatened Danny Panzella out there in New York. So it's nothing new to me, but I'm surprised that he allowed it to get caught on camera like he did. I'll throw you off this effing balcony. No, you're not man enough. I'll break you in half like a boy. He had the audacity to just say that to a reporter. I have another one here. That was from Pigmine 5. I have another one here. Representative Grimm, I lost my cool. Yeah, you think?
Now Congressman Grimm is apologizing. You saw him today. What did he have to say?
Hi, Brooke. Well, of course, we know things can get contentious in an interview, but it's very rare to see a politician, an elected official, threaten someone on camera. Grimm, we spoke to him in the hallway outside of his office after early votes this morning. He said that he apologized. He called Michael Scotto to apologize. He said the two of them plan to have a lunch sometime next week to put this all behind them. Let's play for you a little bit of what he had to say to us.
This was an unfortunate incident that shouldn't have happened, and, you know, I'm sure my Italian mother is going to, be yelling at me saying you weren't raised that way, and she's right.
No, do you think it was appropriate?
Absolutely right. The bottom line is, I overreacted, and my emotions got the better of me. I lost my cool, and that shouldn't happen.
Now, just a little bit of background here. Michael Scotto was trying to ask Congressman Grimm about a Justice Department probe into whether he broke campaign finance laws, raising money 4 years ago. Grimm did not want to talk about that. He seemed to believe that they had some sort of agreement not to address things outside of the State of the Union. That's something Michael Scotto says was not agreed to. I should tell you that Grimm told reporters later on, not on camera, that he hasn't talked to the FBI or the Justice Department about this probe. But I asked him if he thought it was inappropriate. He told Scotto that it was. He didn't seem to want to be asked that question. He sent a statement to New York One saying that the reporter was out of line. And so I asked him, was it out of line? Was it inappropriate to ask about this investigation? And Grimm said, no, it absolutely wasn't. So he's trying to come through and apologize here and kind of clear the slate here. Brooke?
Wonder if this New York One reporter accepts that apology. I guess we will wait to see.
He does accept the apology. He tweeted that he did.
Okay. Athena, thank you very much for us on the Hill.
Well, I don't think that apology should have been accepted. When you have a thuggish attitude coming from a congressman, that congressman should be asked to step down. When a government official proves himself to be a thug, which many of them do, or they have their little thug task force with them, Secret Service, the SS. Why is the Secret Service the only one that doesn't use their initials? You got the, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, ATF, Federal Bureau of Investigations, FBI, Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, Secret Service. Well, SS. Yeah, maybe that might be why. Completely unacceptable. Crazy. Let me pull this up here. Oh, the only Justin Bieber news you will ever hear from me. A petition on the White House website, We the People portion, to deport Justin Bieber and revoke his green card. And says here, we the people of the United States feel that we are being wrongly represented. In the world of pop culture, we would like to see the dangerous, reckless, destructive, and drug-abusing Justin Bieber deported and his green card revoked, the petition reads. And I think it's around 128,000 now, last time I checked. And as of the post, it was 118. And once it reached the 100,000 mark, it requires a response from the president. So let's see whatever comes out of that. Usually nothing, but that would be funny. You act like fool. Maybe that's a sign that the people of America are finally going, you know what, we need to fix our culture. We need to get a grasp on reality again. And that's not forcing a way of life on someone, but to say that, well, we're just going to give special treatment to people that are stars because, and a lot of them are not even, citizens of the United States. They can drink and drive and run around and then go fly out of the country and fly back. And, but this is crazy. DUI, drag racing, vandalizing, doing drugs. I think that would be the best way to maybe get to him, to wake him up, kick him out of the country. Be like, go back to Canada. We're done with you. We seized your home. Get the hell out. And I'm not usually one to say that, but, in Justin Bieber's case, yeah, he really needs a hard slap to bring him back to reality, because he's not acting any different than government acts. And we should also, bring these politicians and government officials back to reality by getting rid of them, voting them out. And, there's a big shift going on in the Republican Party. And, I'm not a go Tea Party guy, but I do support any progress that we can make to move back towards a freer society. Move towards liberty. And people are like, oh, it's going to fail. We just need to wait for it to fail. Well, the problem with that is for the system to collapse will cause panic and bloodshed. We know what happens when governments collapse. And if we allow it to collapse, I think we do leave ourselves open to a vacuum. Because, well, usually what happens is governments fight their people. And then foreign troops come in. And it's to save the people. We know what that usually entails. Basically a total police state. And that's after the country's collapse from a total police state takeover by its own government. people see the opportunity after that collapses to come in. It's a lot of hurt for a lot of people. And a lot of the people that were aware, that were trying to help. I think that's where some people might get it wrong. Again, I support whatever steps we can take to move towards that freer society. I think it's inherent that we support anybody that's willing to stand up and take those steps. So, just keep that in mind. It doesn't mean you have to agree with everything. It's one of those things where you show your support and others show their support for you. And I think we can create a better world that way. And a lot of it is changing the minds and hearts of people. I'm one of those people that I might have a little bit more hope than others. We have to start somewhere, and again, Tea Party groups that I've been in contact with and stuff, they really are making progress at their local level, and they're really starting to shake up, at the federal level too. They're looking to take out Boehner and all of the establishment, McCain and all of them. Will the people that replace these people be better? I don't know. Will they be libertarian? Probably not quite. They might have some libertarian ideology, but I don't think that they will be completely in line with that whole type of libertarian philosophy. But will they point us more towards liberty? I think that possibility within the Tea Party exists because I know some of those people. I've talked and I've had long conversations with people that are a part of the Tea Party. And they really, truly do, have a belief in liberty. And a lot of them call themselves realistic viewers, that even though they have a deep belief in liberty, they understand that we might have to take a different approach at gaining it. And a lot of those people, think Rand Paul is doing that. And here in a minute, I will be queuing up his response to the State of the Union. But first, I wanted to play the GOP State of the Union. And hold on here. And the Tea Party also put out State of the Union, and then Rand Paul put out State of the Union. So let me find it here. Here we go. This should be it. Make sure there's no commercial. Yep, there is. And we can skip it. Good.
Tonight, we honor America, a nation that has witnessed the greatest rise of freedom and opportunity our world has ever seen. A nation where we are not defined by our limits, but by our potential. And a nation where a girl who worked at the McDonald's drive-thru to help pay for college can be with you from the United States Capitol. But the most important moments right now aren't happening here. They're not in the Oval Office or in the House chamber. They're in your homes, kissing your kids goodnight, figuring out how to pay the bills, getting ready for tomorrow's doctor's visit, waiting to hear from those you love serving in Afghanistan, or searching for that big job interview. After all, we the people have been the foundation of America since her earliest days. People from all walks of life and from all corners of the world. People who come to America because here, no challenge is too great and no dream too big. That's the genius of America. Tonight, the president made more promises that sound good, but won't actually solve the problems facing Americans. We want you to have a better life. The president wants that too. But we part ways when it comes to how to make that happen. So tonight, I'd like to share a more hopeful Republican vision, one that empowers you, not the government. It's one that champions free markets and trusts people to make their own decisions, not a government that decides for you. It helps working families rise above the limits of poverty and protects our most vulnerable. And it's one where Washington plays by the same rules that you do. It's a vision that is fair and offers the promise of a better future for every American. If you would have told me as a little girl that I would one day put my hand on the Bible and be sworn in as the 200th woman to serve in the House of Representatives, I wouldn't have thought it possible. I grew up working on my family's orchard and fruit stand in Kettle Falls, a small town in eastern Washington, getting up before dawn with my brother to pick apples. My dad drove a school bus, and my mom worked as a part-time bookkeeper. They taught me to work hard, help others, and always, always dream for more. So when I showed my 4-H animals at the county fair, my parents used to say to me, "Kathy, you need to save this money so you can go to college one day." And so I did. I saved, I worked hard, and I became the first in my family to graduate from college. The chance to go from my Washington to this one was unexpected. I came to Congress to help empower people, not politicians, to grow the working middle class, not the government, and to ensure that everyone in this country can find a job. Because a job is so much more than a paycheck. It gives us purpose, dignity, and the foundation to build a future. I was single when I was elected, but it wasn't long before I met Brian, a retired Navy commander, and now we have 3 beautiful children, one who was born just 8 weeks ago. Like all parents, we have high hopes and dreams for our children, but we also know what it's like to face challenges. 3 days after our son was born, Cole, we got news no parent expects. Cole was diagnosed with Down syndrome. The doctors told us he could have endless complications, heart defects, even early Alzheimer's. They told us all the problems. But when we looked at our son, we saw only possibilities. We saw a gift from God. And today, we see a 6-year-old boy who dances to Bruce Springsteen, who reads above grade level, and who is the best big brother in the world. We see all the things he can do, not those he can't. And Cole and his sisters, Grace and Bren, have only made me more determined to see the potential in every human life. That whether we're born with an extra 21st chromosome or without $1 to our name, we are not defined by our limits, but by our potential. Because our mission, not only as Republicans, but as Americans, is to once again ensure that we are not bound by where we come from, but empowered by what we can become. That is the gap Republicans are working to close. It's the gap we all face between where you are and where you want to be. The president talks a lot about income inequality, but the real gap we face today is one of opportunity inequality. And with this administration's policies, that gap has become far too wide. We see this gap growing every single day. We see it in our neighbors who are struggling to find jobs, a husband who's now working just part-time, a child who drops out of college because she can't afford tuition, or parents who are outliving their life savings. Last month, more Americans stopped looking for a job than found one. Too many people are falling further and further behind because right now, the president's policies are making people's lives harder. Republicans have plans to close the gap. Plans that will focus on jobs first, without more spending, government bailouts, and red tape. Every day, we're working to expand our economy, one manufacturing job, nursing degree, and small business at a time. We have plans to improve our education and training systems so you have the choice to determine where your kids go to school. So college is affordable and skills training is modernized. And yes, it's time to honor our history of legal immigration. We're working on a step-by-step solution to immigration reform by first securing our borders and making sure America will always attract the best, brightest, and hardest working from around the world. And with too many Americans living paycheck to paycheck, we have solutions to help you take home more of your pay through lower taxes, cheaper energy costs, and affordable health care. Not long ago, I got a letter from Betty in Spokane, who had hoped the president's health care law would save her money, but found out instead her premiums were going up nearly $700 a month. We've all talked to too many people who've received cancellation notices they didn't expect, or who can no longer see the doctors they always have. No, we shouldn't go back to the way things were. But this law is not working. Republicans believe healthcare choices should be yours, not the government's, and that whether you're a boy with Down syndrome or a woman with breast cancer, you can find coverage and a doctor who will treat you. So we hope the president will join us in a year of real action by empowering people, not by making their lives harder with unprecedented spending, higher taxes, and fewer jobs. As Republicans, we advance these plans every day because we believe in a government that trusts people and doesn't limit where you finish because of where you started. That is what we stand for. It's for an America that is every bit as compassionate as it is exceptional. If we're successful, years from now, our children will say that we rebuilt the American dream. We built a working middle class that could take in anyone and a workforce that could take on the world. Whether you're a girl in Kettle Falls or a boy from Brooklyn, our children should be able to say that we closed the gap. Our plan is one that dreams big for everyone and turns its back on no one. The president said many things tonight, but now I ask him to listen to you. For the true State of the Union lies in your heart and in your home. Tomorrow, I'll watch my son Cole get on the school bus. Others will wait in the doctor's office or interview for that first job. Some of us will celebrate new beginnings. Others will face great challenges. But all of us will wake up and do what is uniquely American. We will look forward to the boundless potential that lies ahead. We will give thanks to the brave men and women who have answered America's call to freedom, like Sergeant Jacob Hess from Spokane, who recently gave his life to protect all of ours. So tonight, I simply offer a prayer for Sergeant Hess's family, your family, and for our larger American family, that with the guidance of God, we may prove ourselves worthy of His blessings of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. For when we embrace these gifts, we are each doing our part to form a more perfect union. May God guide you and our president, and may God continue.
What a bunch of fluff. How about that? That's what I say about the Republican response. Bunch of fluff, and there's a whole bunch of main things in there that, well, it makes you go, well then why the hell would I vote for you? And one thing is, right at the beginning, if you weren't paying attention, she said, we and the president agree on most of the issues. We just have a difference on how to go about that. And I just imagine her with the British accent, the way she tries to almost, it sounds like she's talking to you like a kid. You know, we need help and we'll help you. It's okay, little kid. Like, who do you think you're talking to? You're definitely not talking to maybe, more educated people, because it sounds like you're talking down to the people. And it was filled with fluff. And basically, well, we agree with Obama on everything, just not the way of going about it. Well, why the hell would we vote for you then? And of course, that's the establishment GOP's response. And, I was going to play the Tea Party response. It's one of those things that you have to hear all three, the Tea Party, the GOP, and Rand Paul's. Because honestly, even though I don't have a lot of trust in Rand Paul, it's one of those things that I do like some of what he pushes for. And he has done stuff within the government that even his father couldn't accomplish, but his father was pushing for. So there's things that he has done, but that doesn't mean I completely trust him. But it's one of those things. We'll see what he does. We'll see if he walks the walk or just talks a talk. And again, I definitely don't agree with him on many issues, but we'll see what comes out of this, because a lot of people are wondering if maybe they should get behind Rand Paul instead of whoever the Tea Party pushes and whoever the Republicans push. And they think by Rand Paul putting out his own response that might be an indication that he is definitely seeking that nomination. Here is the Tea Party response, and that's delivered by Mike Lee, Republican out of Utah. And here we go.
Utah. In the few minutes I have tonight, I'd like to speak especially to those Americans who may feel they've been forgotten by both political parties. Those individuals and families who work hard, play by the rules, balance their budgets, honor the golden rule, and don't understand why their government in Washington can't do the same. You're probably as frustrated as I am about an ever-growing government that somehow thinks it's okay to lie to, spy on, and even target its own citizens. Many hard-working Americans are discouraged and wondering what, if anything, can be done. I believe we need to do what Americans have always done: come together and press for positive change. Protesting against dysfunctional government is a great American tradition, going back to the original Tea Party in Boston about 240 years ago. Americans have a natural instinct to stand up and speak out when they know something's wrong. In 1773, Americans had simply had it with a London-based national government that had become too big, too expensive, and far too intrusive. It's important to note, however, that had the founding generation stopped at just protesting against the kind of government Americans did not want, the Boston Tea Party would have been little more than a footnote in history. At most, it would have been remembered as just one more futile protest against an abusive national government. Fortunately for all of us, those early patriots moved on from Boston and moved past their protest against the government they didn't want. They marched forward on a road toward the kind of government they did want. It took them 14 long years to get from Boston to Philadelphia, where they created, with our Constitution, the kind of government they did want. In America, the test of any political movement is not what that movement is against, but what it's for. The founders made a point at Boston Harbor, but they made history in Philadelphia's Independence Hall. Unfortunately, in recent years, we've had no choice but to engage in a number of protests against our current president's Washington-centered agenda. As Americans, we must always be willing to fight the Boston-type battles, boldly calling out bad policy whenever we see it. But we must do so with an eye toward Philadelphia, maintaining a positive focus on the kind of nation we want to be and become. Today, Americans know in their hearts that something's wrong. Much of what's wrong relates to the sense that the American dream's falling out of reach for far too many of us. We're facing an inequality crisis, one to which the president has paid lip service, but seems uninterested in truly confronting or correcting. This inequality crisis presents itself in three principal forms: immobility among the poor, who are being trapped in poverty by big government programs; insecurity in the middle class, where families are struggling just to get ahead, and they can't seem to do much more than that; and cronyist privilege at the top, where political and economic insiders twist the immense power of the federal government to profit at the expense of everyone else. To be fair, President Obama and his party did not create all of these problems. The Republican establishment in Washington can be just as out of touch as the Democratic establishment. However, tonight, as on numerous occasions of late, the president's lofty rhetoric ignored the fact that his administration continues to leave poor and middle-class families further behind, while he and his allies insist that the real problem is inequality itself. But where does this new inequality come from? From government. Every time it takes rights and opportunities away from the American people and gives them instead to politicians, bureaucrats, and special interests. Inequality, real inequality, is trapping poor children in failing schools to benefit bureaucrats and union bosses. It's penalizing low-income parents for getting married or getting better jobs. It's guaranteeing insurance companies taxpayer bailouts if Obamacare cuts into their profits. Inequality is blocking thousands of middle-class jobs in the energy industry as a favor to partisan donors and radical environmental activists. Inequality is denying viable, unborn children any protection under the law, while exempting unsanitary, late-term abortion clinics from basic safety standards. It's denying citizens their right to define marriage in their states as traditionally or as broadly as their diverse values dictate. It's the federal government hurting rural communities, especially in the West, by controlling and mismanaging public lands. It's changing laws without congressional approval and spying on American citizens without constitutional authority. And of course, Obamacare, all by itself, is an inequality Godzilla that has robbed working families of their insurance, their doctors, their wages, and their jobs. Many Americans are now seeing why some of us fought so hard to stop this train wreck over the last 4 years. Government-driven inequality is the reason why, as hardworking American families across the country struggle to make ends meet, 6 of the 10 wealthiest counties in America are now suburbs of Washington, D.C. Throughout the last 5 years, President Obama has promised an economy for the middle class. But all he's delivered is an economy for the middlemen. And tonight his party cheered as he asked for more of the same, as if the solution to inequality were, well, more inequality. Critics might push back and argue that my own party has been part of the problem, too often joining the Democrats to rig our economy to benefit the well-connected at the expense of the disconnected. I know because I'm one of those critics. But I'm speaking to you tonight because I think maybe, just maybe, that's finally starting to change. As a nation, we are once again at a critical turning point. Now, as in 1773, Americans have had it with our out-of-touch national government. But if all we do is protest, our Boston Tea Party moment will occupy little more than a footnote in our history. Hopefully, our leaders, reformers, and citizens will join the journey from Boston to Philadelphia, from protest to progress. Together, we can march forward and take the road that leads to the kind of government we do want. We have a new generation of leaders in Washington with positive, innovative ideas, thoughtful policy reforms to, as my friend Senator Ted Cruz says, make D.C. listen. Reforms to help poor families work their way into the middle class, to help middle-class families start to get ahead, and to level the playing field and put corporate and political insiders back to work for the rest of us. Conservative reformers like Senator Marco Rubio, Congressman Paul Ryan, and Congressman Jim Jordan are working on new welfare reform ideas to help underprivileged families escape poverty. Senator Rand Paul and I are working with some of the most liberal Democrats in Congress to reform the federal criminal justice system, to help keep violent predators behind bars while creating opportunities for reformed, nonviolent offenders to return to the families and neighborhoods that so desperately need them. Senator John Cornyn has legislation that would empower states to improve K-12 education across the country. Senator Tim Scott has reforms to improve our job training programs. And I've introduced a bill to modernize higher education, making it more accessible and more affordable for lower income and non-traditional students. Congressman Tom Graves has a transportation reform bill to ensure that our infrastructure dollars are invested in roads and bridges and not wasted on bureaucrats and special interests. Congressman Mike Pompeo introduced a bill to end all federal subsidies for the energy industry. And others are working on proposals to do the same for every industry, so that business profits are won from customers, not through political connections. After all, if we're going to reform welfare, we really should start with corporate welfare. One proposal that should directly help you and your family is a bill I've introduced to simplify the tax code and provide relief from the hidden double tax that Washington currently imposes on working parents, especially moms and dads in the middle class. When it comes to health care, we know the best way to repeal Obamacare is to deliver better solutions. We can't just return to the old system. Healthcare policy used to give too much power to insurance companies. Obamacare now gives far too much power to government. We know that real reform will put healthcare dollars and decisions where they belong, in the hands of patients and families and their doctors and nurses. So reformers in both the House and the Senate are hard at work developing new patient-centered reforms to control healthcare costs, ensure access to affordable coverage for all Americans, and provide extra help for the poor and the sick. All of these proposals within this new conservative reform agenda, along with many more to come, mark the road to Philadelphia. These principles and these policies will work and will put Americans back to work, not just by cutting big government, but by fixing broken government, not just by making government smaller, but by promoting bigger citizens, stronger families, and more heroic communities. Our goal should be an America where everyone has a fair chance to pursue happiness and find it. That's what it looks like when protest grows into reform. So if you're one of those Americans that big government is leaving behind, if you work hard, play by the rules, and teach your kids to do the same, I want you to know that your family will not be forgotten anymore. This new generation of reformers still has a long way to go to win over our party in Washington, and even further to go to earn your trust. I'm confident that our best days as a nation are ahead of us, not because of government, but because within America's diverse society of individuals and families and neighborhoods and churches and businesses and communities, freedom doesn't mean you're on your own. Freedom means we're all in this together. I invite you to join us on the road to a more prosperous America. Together we can create the kind of government we do want and the kind of nation our children and grandchildren deserve. Thank you very much for your time. Good night, and God bless.
Okay, well, lot of good speak, some issues that definitely disagree with, but are you going to act on what you say? A lot of the Tea Party seems to be just mainline Republicans trying to win votes. It's one of those things, but a lot of people, even myself, I completely, rail against, the whole election process and all that, but if they're in the system and they're willing to scale back that system that's trying to run our lives, I have to support that, but that doesn't mean that when they stop, I'll support them stopping. I think we need to continue to scale back government, and I think it's important that it, happens now. Now, I have Senator Rand Paul's response to the State of the Union. And he did this separate from the Tea Party, even though he is working with, Cruz and Mike Lee. He went ahead and did his own response to it and did it on YouTube. And that, to many, is pointing that he is trying to position himself for 2016. And I'll leave that up to you. And the interesting thing is, I hear more of the talk I rather hear. Not completely. There's stuff that he says that I don't agree with. And a lot of people that listen to this broadcast will be able to point those things out. But what he says, he puts everything in, and he is the one that basically gave the shortest response to the State of the Union. And he said more, basically. So here we go.
Good evening. President Reagan said, in the present crisis, government is not the solution to our problems. Government is the problem. The crisis that existed when Reagan took office was very similar to the one we face today. Large numbers of people unemployed, and even more dropping out of the workforce, a stagnant economy, a growing federal government. We solved these problems then by coming together and by implementing the right ideas. We can do it again, but we must look beyond the current debate in Washington. Let me say from the outset, I'll work with the president, Democrats, independents, and anyone who wants to get people back to work and alleviate poverty in our country. That said, we must first understand what caused the mass unemployment and the poverty of the Great Recession. The housing bubble and subsequent crash were caused by the Federal Reserve, keeping interest rates too low for too long. Too much government money was given out to too many borrowers who could not afford the payments. Banks were encouraged by government to lend money on houses with no money down. The demand for houses went up, and so did their prices, but it was unsustainable. Millions of people lost their jobs. If we don't understand the cause of joblessness, we'll have trouble fixing it. As we entered into the Great Recession, Republicans and Democrats misdiagnosed the problem as too little government, so they gave us more government in the form of bank bailouts and a government stimulus plan. Nearly $1 trillion later, though, we find that government doesn't create jobs very well. It turned out that it costs nearly $400,000 per job created. Why? Because government is inherently bad at picking winners and losers. In the marketplace, most small businesses fail. If government is to send money to certain people to create businesses, they will more often than not pick the wrong people, and no jobs will be created. Think of the $500 million President Obama gave to Solyndra to build solar panels. Turns out people didn't want to buy these solar panels, and the taxpayer lost that money. Think of the billions spent on the war on poverty over many decades. Government spending doesn't work. It doesn't create jobs. Only the democracy of the marketplace can find those capable of creating jobs. It's not that government's inherently stupid, although it's a debatable point. It's that government doesn't get the same signals. Milton Friedman recognized that when he wrote, "Nobody spends somebody else's money as wisely as they spend their own. When it's your money, it's spent with a concern no government bureaucrat could ever duplicate." Every day, though, someone, through hard work, does rise up out of poverty. Star Parker was one who escaped poverty, drugs, and a hellish life. She described her story in Today's Christian Woman. She was 23 when she quit her job at the LA Times so she could go on welfare. By collecting $465 a month, plus food stamps, and by getting a part-time job that paid cash under the table, she could rent a nice apartment and earn far more money than working an honest 40-hour week. Later, she said she had no trouble dropping her daughter off at a government-funded daycare center, selling some free medical vouchers to buy drugs, and hanging out at the beach all afternoon. Quitting welfare was a big hurdle for her because she had become so dependent on government and had lost a sense of who she was. So she wrote a letter the next day and told the county not to send her any more checks. "I was trusting God," she said, and within 3 months she got a good job at a food distribution company. Star Parker went on to become a nationally known author, speaker, and ultimately a candidate for Congress. I want Star Parker's story to be the rule, not the exception. I have an idea that will empower Americans and give them the opportunity to thrive. My plan is to create economic freedom zones in distressed areas all over the country, including my home state of Kentucky, which will leave more money in the hands of the people who earn it. In economic freedom zones, we'll cut income and business taxes to a single flat rate of 5%. We'll cut payroll taxes for employers and employees, so folks will go home with more money in their paychecks. Burdensome, job-killing regulations will be removed, and business will expand. More money and more jobs will flow back to the areas that have suffered the most in this economic crisis. School choice will be expanded. Parents will receive an educational tax credit because it's parents, not the government, who knows what's best for their kids. Economic freedom zones won't pick winners and losers. The money will go to businesses that consumers have already voted for. The president's promise zones also address poverty, but his plan recycles worn-out ideas that haven't worked in the past. His idea is that we should make it easier to funnel federal dollars back to local governments. I think it would be better not to take the money from the businesses in the first place. We need real jobs created in the real world, not more empty government promises. Under President Obama, the percentage of people working is at its lowest level since the days of Jimmy Carter. Roughly 11 million people are unemployed, and millions more have given up looking for work. Our debt has nearly doubled since President Obama entered office and is now over $17 trillion. Our credit rating has been downgraded. Spending continues at unsustainable levels, and we're borrowing more than $1 million every minute. But the numbers tell only half the story. Parents worry about their children growing up in a country where good jobs are few and far between. More than ever before, Americans wonder how they'll afford to send their kids to college and what will happen if they lose their job. I believe in an America where people are free to make their own decisions, helping each other as they help themselves. And I believe in an America with a strong safety net, but one that doesn't suffocate our resolve to better ourselves and our country. The ticket to the middle class is not higher taxes on the very businesses that must create the jobs. A thriving middle class doesn't come from shuffling the deck chairs on the Titanic. Prosperity comes when more money's left in the private marketplace. Families across America are worried. Good jobs are hard to find. Mr. President, where are the jobs? You spent nearly $1 trillion on make-work government jobs, and still joblessness confronts the next generation. As a country, all of us together must ask, are we better off when we borrow money from China? Are we better off when we print more money to pass around, hoping no one will notice that the emperor has no clothes? The illusion wears thin. It's time we choose another path. Government spending sounds great, But what good is a welfare program that leaves people embittered, resentful, and trapped, unable to climb into the middle class? What is the virtue in making people feel hopeless, like they can't build a good life in America anymore? Hope and change needs to be more than just a slogan. Ronald Reagan once said that to love our country is to love our countrymen. And because we love them, we must provide them with the opportunities to make them equal in fact and not just in theory. The war on poverty failed. It has trapped us in multi-generational dependency. The lesson should be that sending money to Washington and expecting central planners to send it back in a way that creates jobs is foolhardy. Economic growth will come when we lower taxes for everyone, especially people who own businesses and create jobs. If we allow ourselves to succumb to the politics of envy, we miss the fact that money and jobs flow to where they are welcome. If you punish successful businessmen and women, their companies and the jobs these companies create will go overseas. Lower taxes, less regulation will entice money and jobs to return home. Americans want opportunity, a chance to work again. I fully believe that most Americans hate the trap of government dependency, but can't break free because big government gives them no exit. I believe a better tomorrow is around the corner if we can see beyond those who entice us with the easy way out. Hard work and sweat invigorate the spirit and provide a solace no government program will ever achieve. We must choose a new way, a way that empowers the individual through education and responsibility to earn a place alongside their fellow Americans in the most prosperous nation ever conceived. America has much greatness left in her. We must believe in ourselves, believe in our founding documents, believe in our future, and then we will thrive again. Thank you, and God bless America.
So that was Rand Paul's response to the State of the Union. Open phone 718-717-8296. Feel free to call in 718-717-8296 if you have anything to add to any of the responses. The GOP response, the establishment GOP response, the Tea Party response, or Rand Paul's response. Do you have any feelings on it? Where do you stand? 718-717-8296. Feel free to call in. Different people have different opinions. Again, if you want to express those opinions, you can call in. There's something that I think a lot of Americans are finally waking up to, and that's the simple fact that we have a government that is out of control, that is acting like a dictatorial formed government. And what the president is promising to do using executive action points to the complete disregard for the founding documents. And why is that so important? One, they did outline, natural rights, and the individual. And this government is formed from our founding documents. That is what gave our government authority to exist. Now, many people can claim, I didn't sign the document, so, I didn't give the authority. Okay, that's another argument. But those founding documents are what formed the government. If they null and void the Constitution, doesn't that make them null and void themselves? When they trample over the Constitution, do they not trample over the one thing that they were founded off of? Do they just not null and void themselves when they null and void the Constitution? Let's go at it down that route. As a constitutionalist. When I was a hardcore constitutionalist, that's one of the things I always brought up. Of course, I've definitely through, my beliefs and my ideology, I definitely am more libertarian minded than I used to be. But looking at it at a constitutional angle, if you null and void the Constitution, then you null and void yourself. It's such a inconceivable thing, I believe, we have a caller. Let's go ahead and bring this caller in. Caller, welcome to the Anti-Tyranny News Radio broadcast here on UCY.TV. What would you like to add to the conversation? Caller? Hello? And it looks like we lost that call. If you want to go ahead and try to call in again, try to bring you in. There's a lot of issues that come up when we look at where our government is and what authority they operate under. It's not any constitutional authority. There's no checks and balances left in government. When the president can use executive orders to bypass Congress, which is a overreach of his constitutional authority, therefore basically null and voiding the Constitution by ignoring it, then where does your authority come from, Mr. President? Because if I'm to look at the Constitution, then, sir, you're not my president. You null and voided that position when you null and voided the Constitution. And you can say that about other presidents that go far back into history. So it's an issue that it's real important to address, because it's almost like it's so evident that people overlook it. And that's something that probably should be brought up to more politicians. If they're ignoring that, then are they not just null and voiding it? And does that just not null and void their position? Again, if you would like to call in, 718-717-8296, feel free to call in. We do have open phones right now. And I had something here that I wanted to kind of go over. Well, actually, let me cover this before I go on to that, since I was talking about Rand Paul. This one's from the National Journal. Rand Paul, Hillary Clinton is a big proponent of the surveillance state. We already know this. Senator Rand Paul offered a possible preview of the 26th presidential campaign Tuesday. The Kentucky Republican argued that the GOP would win over young voters and independents by opposing the National Security Agency surveillance powers and took a swipe at possible Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton. I think in 2016, if you had a more libertarian-leaning Republican and you had someone like Hillary Clinton, I think you could actually completely transform where people think they are and what party people think they have allegiance for. Here we don't have allegiance for no party. We don't support the left or the right. We support, the truth, liberty, freedom. That's what we support. It says here, he said that at the State of the Net conference in Washington. Has she said anything about privacy? She's been a big proponent of the surveillance state and the NSA. Paul is widely believed to be mulling for a White House bid, and Clinton, the former Secretary of State, would be considered the favorite to win the Democratic nomination if she runs. Paul's comments appear to represent a growing consensus within the Republican Party about the NSA. The Republican National Committee approved a resolution last week with near unanimous support condemning the agency's surveillance practices. In a discussion at Colgate University last year, Clinton called for a full, comprehensive discussion about the NSA, according to the Wall Street Journal report. But she also defended the agency, saying, "From my own experience, information gathering and analyzing has proven very important and useful in a number of instances." At Tuesday's conference, Paul said he hopes his lawsuit against the NSA, which he has yet to file, will ultimately reach the Supreme Court. A federal judge in Washington ruled last month that the NSA's bulk collection of millions of phone records is unconstitutional, but a federal judge in New York upheld the program in a separate lawsuit. Both cases are being appealed. And here's a small clip. Senator Bill Clinton engaged in predatory behavior. Might be a commercial before it. Let's hope not. I get tired of commercials. If it'll play. Maybe. Let me refresh it here. And just to let you know, I am trying to upgrade my internet. It kind of sucks when I don't exactly have too many options where I live. I don't live in a place that has too many sources for internet, so I'm kind of stuck here with what I got for now. Where is this article? Here we go. Refresh it, takes me back to the main page. What the hell is going on here? Okay, here we go. Now let's see if the video wants to go ahead and play. Cue. Here we go.
It now that one candidate on the Democratic side will have a lot of momentum. Whether she gets the nomination or not, we don't know, is Hillary Clinton. And an interesting profile in Vogue magazine, including this analysis. While her husband jokes, meaning you, that his gut feeling is that Hillary Clinton will not run for president is a good thing, since all the polls show her trouncing any opponents, Kelly, the wife of Senator Rand Paul, practically cuts him off to say that Bill Clinton's relationship with Monica Lewinsky should complicate his return to the White House, even his first spouse. I would say his behavior was predatory, offensive to women, she tells me. Are these issues something that you really think will be fair game and an appropriate part of a campaign should she be the nominee?
Well, the Democrats, one of their big issues is they've concocted and says Republicans are committing a war on women. One of the workplace laws and rules that I think are good is that bosses shouldn't prey on young interns in their office. And I think really the media seems to have given President Clinton a pass on this. He took advantage of a girl that was 20 years old and an intern in his office. There is no excuse for that, and that is predatory behavior, and it should be something we shouldn't want to associate with people who would take advantage of a young girl in his office. This isn't having an affair. This isn't me saying, oh, he's had an affair, we shouldn't talk to him. Someone who takes advantage of a young girl in their office, really. And then they have the gall to stand up and say Republicans are having a war on women. So, yes, I think it's a factor. Now, it's not Hillary's fault.
But it should be an issue.
But it is a factor in judging Bill Clinton in history.
Right, but is it something that Hillary Clinton should be judged on if she were a candidate in 2016?
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that. This was with regard to the Clintons, and sometimes it's hard to separate one from the other. But I would say that with regard to his place in history, that it certainly is a discussion. And I think in my state, people tend to sort of frown upon that. We wouldn't be, if there was someone in my community who did that, they would be socially, we would disassociate from somebody who would take advantage of a young woman in the workplace.
All right, Senator Rand Paul, a lot of ground covered, a lot of ground still to cover, and we'll hope to have you back. Senator, thank you as always.
Okay, well, there's what he thinks of Clinton, Bill Clinton. Okay. I have out of Ben Swan. Well, come on. Tennessee newspaper, columnist grossly misinterpret, Constitution. This is by Michael Lofty. Says Nashville. Recently, Tennessee columnists Gail Keir, Kerr, and Phil Kramer both penned separate columns full of insults and name-calling, which equate to little less than political hit pieces against against State Senator Beavers, Republican, in which the two grossly misinterpret critical facts surrounding the Healthcare Freedom and Noncompliance Act. The two poorly attempt to repudiate the legislation, and in doing so prove critical deficiency of a working knowledge of the U.S. Constitution and Supreme Court case law. Kramer states in his column that the bill cannot fly because the federal government can command state governments to carry out federal law. I was taught this in public school. It is called the Supremacy Clause, which is part of Article. Okay, hold on. Did he really just try to use the Supremacy Clause? Really? This, oh my gosh. It says here, Keir echoes the same Supremacy Clause. And then they, try to bring up the court. It says here, first, the Supreme Court did not rule the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, constitutional, clearly to have never read National Federation of Independent Business versus Sebelius, which is the actual case, not what they have read in the headlines. The court redefined the health care law to be interpreted as such, which was more suitable to the possibility of constitutionality. Therefore, as drafted by lobbyists and passed by Congress, the health care law is not found to be constitutional, as proven by the need to redefine the law by the court to the dissent of multiple justices. Second, a government-run school taught that big government was supreme. Shocking. This supposed supremacy clause of the Constitution reads, "This Constitution and the laws of the United States which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be supreme law of the land." Emphasis added. Note these words in particular. Shall be made in pursuance thereof this Constitution. The federal Constitution delegates less than 24 powers to the national government. Healthcare is not one of them. Healthcare is, in fact, a power of policy, which are powers delegated to the state and local governments. That sums it up right there. They completely lie. That's really what they're doing. They're just flat out lying. They're lying about the real meaning of something, and that should be taken serious. And that's what we see out of government, out of both sides, right and left. This is what they do. There's a lot of shaking up going on in the political realm due to what's going on in the public realm. We have a lot of people right now that are completely frustrated and done with what the system is doing. You know, are we actually getting that great awakening that we've been hoping for? I hope so. I hope that we are headed that direction because we need it. That is what needs to happen to prevent the type of revolution they always talk about, which ends up usually turning out pretty bad. And I want to see a peaceful reversal of where government has gone. I don't know too many people that are like, oh no peaceful reversal of the way government is going. We just need crazy, just complete out of control. Now I do know people that are saying, well, we need to abolish the federal government and try to get back to states. And I think that is only possible if you get a large amount of the populace awake. And when I say large, I'm talking 75 and above. I don't see it happening until you can get that many people awake. Constitutional, I think that with the direction that America's headed, I think that is a possibility. That we do see a possibility of someone getting elected that is more constitutional. Will they change the system? I don't believe that. What I do believe is that they will halt the growth of the system. If you get someone in there that is true to what they say they believe in. But the problem that a lot of Americans have right now is they say one thing and they do the opposite. Or they say one thing, they say it one way, but their actions show a manipulative talk by that person in power, which I think Obama falls in that class. He can say something to make you like it, but when you see it actually enacted, you understand what he meant. Then other things he just plains out plain lies about. So, I think anybody that can put trust in Obama to do anything for the people has not educated themselves. They are a tool. Okay. I had one here queued up. Let me see here. I must have closed out that window. I got another one open though. I have another one out here out of Pigmine 5. Obama ready to act alone on some policies. Well, yeah, the ones he thinks he can get away with. That's basically what that's saying.
President Obama says he'll do anything he can to narrow the gap between rich and poor. The income equality gap was a major theme in the president's State of the Union address on Tuesday night.
What I believe unites the people of this nation, regardless of race or region or party, young or old, rich or poor, is the simple, profound belief in opportunity for all.
The president offered a...
And, you know, that's usually what they try to always bring up. We have a caller. Let's go ahead and bring the caller in. Welcome, caller. Anti-Tyranny News Radio here on UCY.TV. What would you like to add to the conversation, and who is this?
Hey, Josh, this is Vince. How you doing, bud?
How you doing?
Yeah, been running around here, catching up on all the social media and listening into your program. I just really, the point I would like to make is, and I just made a post on this, Pete Seeger. I never knew who the guy was, but I guess he's famous, just died or something. He said it's very important that we learn to be able to discuss with people with whom we disagree. And I think that's very important because there's no 100% right system anywhere. There's no one place that we can all go. There's no one political system or religious system or anything else for that matter that's going to fit everybody. So I think it's important to have some tolerance, and as long as a person's what they're doing is has some positive effect and they're not harming another, then I think we need to support them.
And you bring up an important thing because I think we allow ourselves to be divided and conquered too much, where someone that's hardcore libertarian will go, well, I'm not going to, support a Tea Partyist that wants to scale back government. And you're like, why not? Is that not your goal to, scale back government? Well, no, my goal is to get rid of government completely. Well, how would you get there from now? Would you rather a bloody revolution, or would you rather a scaling back government and working towards that freer society? And I think that's where a lot of people get caught. And it's like, I do believe in that libertarian philosophy, but I also have to be realistic. And what do I want to see for the future? Do I want to see a complete collapse, people dying and bloodshed and martial law, or do I want to see people standing up?
By the hundreds.
Yeah.
Hundreds of millions. Sorry to interrupt you. By the hundreds of millions. And any study of history will show that all the revolutions have always been co-opted, and the people behind the scenes, they come in, they put somebody up front, and then they come in and usually knock them off and take the reign of power. Then, and with say the Russian Revolution for one, or the in China. So it's always the same. In Cuba, everywhere you go, any instance of history is always it's never good. It's never good to take your guns to the street and think that's going to fix it. And unfortunately, it's probably going to head that way one day, but by then it'll probably be too late because the powers that be have all the systems in place It's so well constructed over, if not decades, or if not centuries, at least decades. I mean, and it's just, you know, I just love that phrase about the bull and frogs. You know, and most people are too comfortable, and so many times, you know, we're knocking other people. They played by the rules in life. Their success. They've got their home, their car. Of course, all the payments go with it. This and that, la di da. But you know, we can't go around, you know, criticizing them and telling them what, you know, fools and sheeple they are and stuff like that. For the most part, you know, they have a happy life. They just fail to realize that the completeness of the system has them so far enslaved to the system, you know, to the tune of probably 96% of what they make and earn, and is all going back to feed this terrible beast that controls the world. And America is not the America that people think it is. And, you know, through the years, through history, that we supposed America to be the good guy, standing up for the underdog, the little guy, going and making rights where wrongs are throughout the world. No, we're the evil tyranny now, the tyrants, the ones going around, you know, doing things that generally opposed, you know, throughout history. You know, that's why Americans were so on board to go into World War I and World War II and the other wars, you know. And there goes one of our military right there. Looks like a stealth fighter. It's pretty loud. I'm right here next to Nellis Air Force Base. I'm right up against it. We've had a lot of flights out today. But anyways, you know, our military men and women and our police officers, it's very important that we not alienate ourselves from them or them from us. And, you know, we need to be able to have a discussion in a way that we don't offend somebody right off where they shut down and they're not hearing anything else we hear or we have to say. And it's very important that we do get the military and police in with us. And you know, Obama,
and there's a lot of
people.
Look at Oath Keepers. You know, there's a lot of them standing up for the individuals. So, you know, there's a point where we can look at it and say, well, maybe I should start disassociating myself with the people that they don't go, well, let me point out the good and the bad. They want to always just point out the bad. And, you know, I've said on this broadcast before, even though I might bring up a story about, police abuse and, you know, cops abusing people and shootings, that you also have to look at it. There's been sheriffs like Stan Lennon, you know, standing up for people's rights and, you know, supporting them. And we have to understand that these are just people too. They're, you know, just
That's
because
right.
they have a uniform on, when they don't act like RoboCop, don't treat them like RoboCop. Show that humanity back, because what you do is you make that human interaction. And that's more important than the, you know, police officer or sheriff meeting the citizen, when you start bringing it back to that, you know, basic human level. And I think we've lost that when we allow ourselves to be divided. Well, that person's not completely libertarian, so I can't support him. Well, can you support him wanting to scale back government? And I say yes, I can support, but that doesn't mean that I, you know, pledge my allegiance to that person. You either do the walk or you get out of the way, and we'll get someone else in there that will. And, you know, I've been registered to vote. So, you know, I'm already in that system. So maybe it's something that I have to engage in. Otherwise, you know, we've seen the whole election fraud and what they can do. I'm sure if I don't vote, then someone will use my name for whatever purpose they need.
Well, you know, it's important that if a person is a voter, and myself, I've never voted once in my life, but if a person is a voter, and to become educated and to realize that on the even down to the local level, it's all, you know, all about the money. And so if we can have a discourse about, how the lobby industry works, and especially, with Congress and Senate and so forth. Their job after being elected is to be reelected, and it's not to, pander to their constituency, but to the special interest. So it's something I haven't done yet that I intend to learn is the quorum court system, and I think that's where we're going to have to go. Now, on Double Cross Radio, Anthony, I can't remember his last name, last Thursday, Drew David and Chuck had Anthony on from the Jefferson Republic up there in Oregon and Northern California, and he lined it out pretty good. And if y'all didn't catch that show, go to the archives for last Thursday on Double Cross. Listen to that. That's, I think, and they agree, their best broadcast for the information. It just laid it out so simple, and I think this is the information that we need to convey to people about the system and the Federal Reserve and so forth. So, let's not concentrate on what we don't agree on. Let's work on what we do agree upon and move forward, because if not, we're just going to be divided and remain conquered.
And that's the most important issue is we have to come to the realization that we are being divided and conquered. We've allowed it through class warfare, through race, through, political, well, you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, you're a Libertarian, you're a Green Party, you're a Constitutional Party, Justice Party, whatever. We have to get back to the concept that, no, I am me. My name is Josh. I'm not Libertarian, I'm not Republican, I'm not Democrat, I'm Josh. My ideology comes from my knowledge, not from a party, not from a politician, not from one person. It comes from my knowledge that I've gained through educating myself and understanding where I'm coming from. Our culture has come from, where we should be going, and where we are going, because we're headed in a digression of society right now.
Yeah, you have my greatest respect too, to be able to come on radio day in and day out for all these months and be able to convey this information, and it's important. In itself, we're not seeking greatness. I think I'm probably the least apt as far as being a radio broadcaster. I think it's kind of funny to listen to myself, so I rarely do. But it's one little thing. It don't matter. Just do something. You don't have to have a radio show. You don't have to write a column or anything like that. It's important that maybe if you just talk to a friend or a family member or something, and what you said about informing yourself, educating yourself, that's our responsibility and nobody else's.
Yeah, and the self-education, I think, is the most important. People go, well, I need to educate myself, so I need to go back to school, and I think that's a completely wrong concept. And educating yourself is where you get the passion for your knowledge. When someone's trying to, give you one way of thinking, you don't have that ability to, grow your mind. But when you self-educate, then you start looking at multiple sources and you go with competing, concepts or opinions or ideology or, the way it was viewed, let's say a war. You start educating yourself and you're able to come to a real conscious, conclusion to what, you're taking in, and you can go, well, both sides can agree on this, that, well, this might be a fact here, but they both disagree on this. Well, that's because you're coming from two different sides. Of course, you look at our wars, well, of course people in other countries might want to raise up arms because you have a foreign army on your soil. And it would be the same if, we had foreign armies march around, breaking into our houses looking for terrorists. There would be a lot of Americans that would be upset for that. So that allows you to go, well, maybe our whole, run around the world being the policemen of the world is counterproductive. Maybe that's not in our best interest. Maybe that's what's, facilitating this, problem.
For sure. And, I think I'm lucky. Basically, I got an 8th grade education. I did go back and get the papers for GED and was salutatorian in Texas Department of Corrections. Hey, be an autodidact. Be self-taught.
Yeah.
Don't buy what's being sold through these books. I mean, just any study of the public education system will show that it was completely set up to denude the minds of the American people.
And a lot of people go, well, you know, you need that degree to be able to make it in this world. And I say there's too many people that, you know, from Einstein to even something that people might hate, that I say Glenn Beck. You know, these people, they didn't get degrees and they were educated. They were educated, like, I think Einstein might have got hit. I forget when he got any type of degree, but I think it was also something
honorary.
Yeah, it was an honorary degree, but that wasn't from going to school and gaining that knowledge. He had that passion. That's why I tell people too, when they look at, well, I don't make enough money, I'm a factory worker. Find your passion, because if you educate yourself on your passion, you will be the most successful in that field.
Absolutely.
And
you know, that's why I don't mind having guests on that have another opinion other than my own. I had a panel on that were anti-chemtrailers, you know. I don't buy what they had to sell, but I took a good hard look at it, you know. I think it's important to try to, use the scientific method of falsifying or, to try to invalidate that information that you're supposed to be true. Or else, you're no different than a cult member, you know, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Whether you're talking about religion or politics.
And
I'm sorry, say that again.
I said you can't really blindly follow anything. You know, I question myself. I question my knowledge, because I want to double check and triple check and, quadruple check. Because if I'm not questioning myself, then I'm just jumping on another bandwagon. I'm just following another philosophy of someone else. To truly have your own ideology, your own philosophy, you have to constantly question yourself.
Yeah, I may be, I forget what I was going to say. I may be wrong, but, I think I'm pretty unique in my opinions, and I really don't follow any doctrine or person or nothing else. Hey, thanks for having me on, Josh. Just a quick reminder, we've got a new show coming on following you, and I don't know anything about it, so I'm looking forward to listening. It's called Try This at Home with Dane Martin, and that's following your show.
Yes, so definitely for everybody out there, stay tuned for that. And thanks, Vince, for calling in and joining in on the conversation. It's always great to have you. And thanks for the kind words, because I usually, I question my ability to do this broadcast, and I just try to do my best. I try to bring as much knowledge as I can to the table, and I hope that, if anything, I'm enlightening people or making them question themselves and seek knowledge. But
I love UCY. This is a great place to be. So many great people here, and thanks, JJ. You're responsible for me being here. I met JJ about 3 years ago out on the road, and he's a great guy, man. Love him to death.
Yes,
thanks, Josh. I'm jumping out. I'm going to let you finish your show. Thanks, brother.
Yep, take care.
Yep. Bye.
And JJ and Jules are two that I have known from another network and have been alongside for quite a while now, and great people that will, help you, that will.
You're listening to the Hour of the Time. I'm William Cooper.
Sounds like we have that popping in at the end of the show and at the beginning.
I don't know where to start.
Sounds like the broadcast will be over here in a second. And I just want to thank everybody for out there for supporting me and supporting UCY.TV. And I will see you this Friday with some more great information. Stay tuned for a new broadcast. Try this at home. Thanks for listening. Take care.